I could dance if you want.
You can dance if you want to. You can leave it all behind.
I'm a half Aussie. I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Got the half Aussie thing. All right, let's start this podcast. Hey, everyone. Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 15, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, is over and has been since 1969. But we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader, coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews. We are here streaming live on our Facebook page at Live Long and Podcast. You may also be watching us on our YouTube channel or listening to us on the audio version. Welcome to all of you, present and future. We're going to talk about this episode. I'm joined by a fabulous panel today. Of course, this is part of our TED Trek 60s rewatch. So this is the Star Trek variation. We were just kind of saying that there may be some non-Star Trek 1960s TV show rewatches, but over here, if it's Star Trek, it's going to be on Live Long and Podcast. So I'm joined by my father, Ted Mader, who's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Say hello, Ted.
I'm there.
Hello, I'm in that. I'm here.
He's here. Joining us again here in the top right-hand corner of your screen, our friend and yours, the ever-salty Jody Simpson.
I don't have a graphic this time.
No graphic.
Yeah.
And in the bottom right-hand corner, my brother, not yours, Jeff Mader.
Really?
Hi, my brother from the same mother. What's going on, Dave?
Hey. Okay, let's talk about this episode. Wow. Okay, so Dad, we said, okay, we're coming in this week. Last week we watched a piece of the action, which was a season 2 episode featuring a world of Chicago gangsters. You said, let's pick this one. I think I know why, but why did you pick this particular Star Trek episode to watch next?
Because I think it reflects today's world. How
Yeah.
the world's in trouble. How the world's in trouble and they're fighting. Everybody's fighting, especially in the States. And so these
Right.
two guys could be a Republican and a Democrat, and they're going at it. And they don't like each other, and they can't see the forest for the trees, and then eventually it destroys their entire planet. And in their case, the entire country of America. And so, yes, I thought this was a reflective of today's environment.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I thought I was rewatching this. I felt it had a lot of poignant items, lines in it, themes that still ring true today. Like this episode was designed to be an allegory for the civil rights movement, and was meant to be very obvious. It was meant to be about blacks versus whites in the United States, and sort of shining a light on the sense of how absurd the struggle is. And now it's just as relevant, not just for race relations, but also for partisan issues, which I think we can get into today. So let's go to Jody and Jeff next. Jody, let's start with you first. High-level thoughts after having rewatched this episode?
I am thankful that makeup has gone further since 1969. Past that, I just noticed that I still have the clip on. Hold on. But yeah, no, it was a good episode, I guess, from the political aspect of things. Current event relation as well. It's certainly not my favorite episode of the original series by any means. I was a little kind of curious as to why Ted picked this episode, but I sure went and watched. And of course, that scene that you were talking about, which we'll probably show later on, was.
Well, and also, you got to remember Frankie Gorshin. He was the original Riddler. If you remember that, he was the original Riddler from back in the 60s.
Together, but yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's the same actor, and Frankie Gorshin is a legend. So I figured,
he
you got
plays
to get
Commissioner
Frankie
Beale
Gorshin
in this episode. He's the half black because one guy he's white on the right side and the other guy's black on the right side. Right? That's the distinction.
That's right.
And that's what it was kind of like, if it's not something that you can relate to directly, like I think the direct correlation in the 1960s was, well, blacks and whites have all this tension and hatred and history. And if we just show that, if it's just a matter of what side the pigment's on, it's so absurd, they'll get it. And I think a lot of people did understand that message. But Jeff, let's go over to you next. What's your sort of take on this episode, high level?
Yeah, it's pretty much what you guys have been saying. It's a dated metaphor for racism, especially the civil rights movement in the 60s. Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be on the nose. It's supposed to kind of make you, think about that, what's going on in the real world. Kind of like Dad said, like, with what's going on today, you could really, use that metaphor in multiple different ways. Like, yes, in the 60s, obviously the racism thing was the main focus, but today you could talk about even just nurses versus like rednecks, basically what's going on right now. Like you could make that
We are
same,
seeing a bit of that, yeah.
that same metaphor was what's going on right now, and it's just that anytime two sides are so diabolically opposed from each other, you could make this metaphor. It doesn't just have to be about white people, black people, even though that's the obvious thing to talk about here, but you can make it about really anything. You can make it about Republicans, Democrats. You could make it against my hockey team, against your hockey team, whatever it is. You could make this argument. Whether or not I think the show does a good job with it, but I also the impression I took the most from this episode was Kirk's cavalier attitude. Did you guys notice that a lot? I found Kirk kind of laissez-faire. He's like, screw it, let them run around the ship. Uhura's at one point
I know, I couldn't believe he was letting them run around the ship uncharted, especially guys with that kind of power.
Right. He literally says to them after they've already taken over the ship. This is after they've already taken over the ship, and he's almost blown it up. He says to both of them,
"You are free to move about the ship."
You're free to move about the ship.
For the audience needs to know the fact that before that even happened, there was a big whole kerfuffle about, blowing up the damn ship because he didn't want him to have control and all that, right? It's like it went from one extreme to a complete other. It's like, oh, you almost made us all die, but in a couple of minutes from now, you know what? Walk around, enjoy the facilities.
Commissioner Beale, the one he had the direct conflict with, not Lokai. Lokai stole the shuttlecraft, but apparently
Lokai kept playing. He was a political prisoner.
Yes.
Right. Lokai was a bleeding heart, sort of melodramatic whiner, if you will, but also fighting for his civil rights. So I look at Lokai sort of through a different lens after this viewing than I did the first, dozen times I've watched this episode over my course of my life. That he's more about I have to fight the good fight, and I have to, which sounds noble. It sounds noble, but really he doesn't seem like he's too interested in sort of making amends and sort of evolving and trying to reconcile the relationship, not just with Beale, but between the two sides, this two ethnic groups of their planet.
I do find you could kind of compare these two characters kind of to the Bajoran and Cardassian struggle that goes on in Deep Space Nine. Which one's Lokai? Is he the guy with the black on the right side of his face? Is that which one?
Lokai is the guy with he's white on the right side.
White.
Okay, so Lokai is kind of like the Bajorans, and the other guy is kind of like the Cardassians in their philosophy and in their mindsets.
Right, and in the 1960s, Lokai is meant to be representative of Black African Americans, and and Beale's meant to be representative of white Caucasian Americans.
I like Beale's ship though. Beale had a really cool ship. It was invisible.
It was invisible and it was fast.
Remember Beale, how he got there?
And then it
how
disintegrated.
cool it actually is, though, Ted, because we never got to see it.
Right.
It could have been a big dildo. We don't know.
I know we didn't get to see it. We don't know how big it was.
I guess.
But from all indications are, it had to be really small. It just was good enough to go about 1,000,000 miles an hour to chase Lokai.
Yeah, but let's talk about this whole what the whole premise, sort of the episode is. If we go back to the beginning, so the beginning of the episode starts with the Enterprise is en route to a planet called Arianis, which apparently is an important commerce hub of some kind, and they have a bacterial invasion. They have a disease, I suppose, some kind of bacteria that's attacking the planet.
Can we get one of them here?
Yeah, well, it'd be nice. It seems like what the Enterprise has to do is just spray decontamination dust or something into the planet. When they eventually get around to it in the episode, it takes about 5 seconds.
It's like basically the Enterprise is a big can of Lysol.
Basically.
They just show up. All right, we're good.
And if Trump was the captain, he'd say, "Inject it right into your blood."
Right. Yeah. And they're on their way to this planet, and they run into into Lokai, who's stolen a shuttlecraft from Starbase 4, and that's sort of how he comes to meet Lokai and comes to meet the other guy, Beale, a little bit later on. And that starts up the whole premise.
How far is Starbase 4 from Arianis? Does anybody
Well,
know
I can't.
that?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. Not far. Not that far.
Like how far could that shuttle have survived off of Starbase 4? They had to be roughly nearby, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, like it said he had stolen it 2 weeks ago. So he had it for at least 2 weeks.
But the shuttle only runs on like impulse anyway, right?
The shuttle, I think so. Like that kind of shuttle, I think so. But the thing with that shuttle is that, or with the thing with Lokai and Beale and the Sharonians, if we want to call them that, it seems like they have very advanced physiologies that they can, they recover very fast. That they obviously have been. They say this chase has been going on for 50,000 years. They're obviously a very long-lived species as well, who.
Yes.
Can normally a human wouldn't be able to survive in a shuttle for 2 weeks, but I guess he can, or he just barely did. And they're mostly annoyed with him that he stole the shuttle. They're kind of grilling him, and as soon as they start asking questions, he's very defensive, which gets their relationship a little rocky.
Kind of like a black guy who maybe stole a car in the 60s.
I guess so. I guess that's kind of what they were trying to put into this, right? Like that he's the oppressed, and he has sort of a victim complex to him, where he's always going to be like, well, you're only coming after me because of blah, blah, blah. But if you just listen to me, you would see all of my actions are justifiable because of whatever. And an authority just doesn't understand. So I guess that was meant to be the what they were trying to go for in that scene. Yeah,
I think so.
Sounds right.
Right. He says, you monotone humans are all alike. You don't understand.
Yes.
Right. And then Beale eventually shows up in his super fancy spacecraft, I guess, his invisible speedster, and he just kind of deposits himself onto the bridge, and voila, here comes Frankie Gorshin from of Batman fame. Yeah, well, there they are.
Why does Frankie Gorshin have the dog collar?
Because he's
I think that's supposed to prove that he's in power or something.
Yeah. So Gorshin's character Beale, he's meant to be like the I guess the upper class, right? Like the oppressors. So he has like silver trim on his outfit. By the way, let's
he had a collar and he had a belt.
A belt, and Lokai doesn't.
Yeah.
But let's talk about these outfits that they're both wearing. This is because Jane was commenting on this in particular, that they were making her very uncomfortable. They were too revealing, way too revealing, distracting in some ways. Not just that you could see their packages, we could see their belly buttons, we could see the outline of their underwear. Now we're watching this in high def compared to 1960s.
It was a very thin material, I think. Yes,
it's very pajama-like.
Yes,
I never noticed.
Yeah,
you can tell Dave did though. Dave has almost like this, like I've seen some shit look on his face. He's like,
well, once Jane really started pointing it out, I couldn't look away.
You couldn't stop, eh?
Women tend to look at that. Women tend to look at that.
I think you had mentioned earlier, Jody, that the makeup. Wow,
makeup is terrible.
I mean, I think it's pretty good. They got that line pretty straight.
No, the line isn't the issue.
That line was straight, Jody.
The line isn't the issue. It was the fucking lips were all fucked up. And near their ears, they're all fucked up.
Do you know what? I don't
I understand why. Like it's hard to do something like that.
It looked like Lokai had red eyes too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, both of them do. They both look like they're strung out.
It's the 60s. They're probably smoking drugs, like
I hope so.
Right.
Anyway.
And this is effectively a bottle episode, right? And that's like a term used in TV to mean that like they never leave the ship in this episode. No. The whole thing takes place on existing sets. They didn't have to build anything. They just basically had to hire 2 actors, and that was it.
And they had to do some graphics. They had to show the planet. But yeah.
Yeah, and
there are some scenes, there are some shots, especially later on in the episode, where they're showing like all these burnt buildings. It looked like basically they just took some old stock footage from World War II.
It is old stock footage, totally. It's World War II stock footage.
That's what
there's even a scene, if you look really hard. I don't have a clip of it, but if you look really hard, you can actually see like infantry So it's like, oh yeah, this is totally like just archive footage of like World War II.
Yeah,
It
okay.
actually
I
looked
thought,
like
I thought it looked like,
British bombing.
like nuclear war.
There was some of that, yeah. Yeah, there was some Hiroshima stuff there as well, yeah. So it was interesting.
Sharon
We
is
have
a beautiful
a
place.
clip
I mean, that was a really
later
nice
that we're going to
tropical
show.
planet.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the running at the end.
All right, should we just show it?
Well,
I think we should. Just
yeah,
show
we
it.
should.
You got to go full screen for me on that one, though.
Okay, so at the very end of the episode, which is as confusing as anything I've seen, so they find out that their planet has been destroyed and all the people are dead. Sorry, the planet's still intact, but all the people are dead.
Yeah.
And so Lokai leaves the bridge first, eventually makes himself down to the transporter room, beams himself down, and Beale follows him.
How come nobody was manning the transporter room?
What? Well, I just don't understand. Like again, it
Not
goes
only
back
that,
to
but how do they know how to use it?
Kirk's attitude in this whole episode is bizarre.
It was almost like Kirk didn't want them on the ship. He's just like, you know what? Fuck it. Go do what you want.
Kind of, yeah. Like
Yeah,
he was just like, whatever. Like let them go.
It was like dropping the kids off at grandma's house, you know? Like it was just like, you know, Kirk's grandma, oh kids, you just go play now. You tried to kill us earlier, but it's fine.
Right.
You know?
Well, they beam down, and Kirk just like, okay, warp 2, let's go.
He's like, yeah, and we're done.
I love how Spock is doing the play-by-play.
Well, it's literally like he's commentating on a race. Like, okay, and so here comes Beale. He's making his way down deck 5, and he's making his way around the corner. Here he comes with this is an impressive run if I've ever seen one. I can't believe he never caught Lokai in 50,000 years of chasing him with this run. It is.
Well, that's not Lokai. That's
I like his run.
You like this run?
I think it's at least he gave something to the character.
He's got the same look that I have after sex.
Yeah,
where you're tired. You're like, you know what? I'm having no more of this shit.
You're just so thirsty. You're trying, it's kind of like the run I did when I had to go to the bathroom right before our podcast the other day, and it starts with that run. That's kind of the run I did.
We have a comment here in real time. Jason Doan is saying, "Holy explicitly deleted. It's Ted Mater.
Holy shit!
Holy shit! Ted Mater's in tonight.
Yes."
No, it's no Tom Cruise run. You're right, Jason Doan.
It's no Tom Cruise run. I like that.
That is definitely true.
It is true.
But I think you know what? No, not everybody can be Tom Cruise. Frank Gorshin, he brings a certain, a certain feel to that character. Which I mean, he's basically a bitch, and you're supposed to not like this character. If he ran like Tom Cruise, you're going to be like, that guy's pretty cool. Right?
Do you think that was direction that the director gave to Frank Gorshin?
No.
Unlike a dork.
No,
it was a choice. That was a choice.
I think he was trying to show that he's like tired of the situation, and he's like, I just want to get this guy caught. But at this point, he already knows that like his entire civilization has been wiped out. Like, there's only 2 of them now. It's just those 2 guys, right? So it's like,
are there women?
They'll fight for eternity.
Are there women?
We don't know.
We never know. Eh?
For all we know, they might be just an all-male species.
Well, I would think so. That
they must have been because they had kids.
Well, maybe they're whatever they call that.
Yeah,
maybe they got both parts.
Maybe they hatch.
Maybe there was people hidden.
Perhaps. But okay, so
we're getting into a whole other issue here.
I'll tell you, Kirk and the Enterprise don't seem to care. They take off as fast as they can at the end of this episode.
Oh fuck, he was gone like
for a place that they've never that they've never explored. They didn't stay around very long.
No, he was like,
well, yeah.
He was like when he called the kids for supper, man. He was like, "Whoop, gotta go."
Earlier on, they go, Shimron. It's in the southernmost part of the galaxy. Okay, I didn't realize that galaxies had north and south. But
I caught that too.
Yeah,
and it's a place that we don't have a treaty with.
Yeah,
we've never been to. We don't know anybody from there, and but we know it's a place. They knew it was a place, and they knew it was a place that they could get in a relative short amount of time, right? At least at if they were going at maximum warp. But that's it. That's all they know about it. And somehow Lokai and Beale over 50 1,000 years. Okay, like it's not. If they said he had been chasing him for 50 years, I think that would have sufficed.
Well, we also don't know how long a year is to them, though. That could have been 20 minutes. We don't know. They didn't say Earth years.
He says terrestrial years.
Yeah, that's their terrestrial, not ours.
Yes, I was looking for
That's true.
hermaphrodite, Jason. That was exactly right. Thank you.
That's what we're looking for. That's the word.
That's what we were looking for.
I'm glad that this is a word that I never thought I'd hear on this podcast.
You never know on Live Long and Podcast what you're going to get.
What it is? Just
It's a
a
box of
random.
chocolates.
Star Trek, man. You
It's
got
a random bucket.
move outside of the box, right?
Especially the 60s.
So they didn't have a nationality, those guys, did they? Like they weren't called Sharonians, were they?
Not on screen. Like they say they're from
I
the
don't think
planet
they said it.
Charon.
Yeah, Sharon,
And
yeah.
I think my cat.
So-
is one
Yeah,
It sounds
spots
to me
in the background.
sounds to me like Beale would be for a Charon, and the other guy would be like a subterranean
He's the other
type guy. Yeah.
He's behind you, Dave.
Yeah, he went on the bed
There you go. He figured it out. I don't know why we're stopping a podcast for a cat.
because it was interesting. That's why.
I see.
We're not following the format, Jody.
what?
Clearly.
Dave, for that one, we would have to do Gary 7. That program.
Oh, do you really want to watch that one?
No, but I mean that's where the cat's in it.
That's true.
Right?
There was an alien cat in that one. You're right.
An alien cat getting Gary
Ted
7.
Vader, the encyclopedia of Star Trek, the first generation.
Oh, you got
original,
it. You got it.
original generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he knows things about 60s TV that I will never know. Or
He's forgotten more than we'll ever know.
yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yep.
Well, that's one way to say it.
Yeah, wait till you get your Beverly Hillbillies out soon.
Although I had to teach him how to.
I'm just going to let you know
Download-
I won't be here for that.
I had to teach him how to download and install iTunes tonight, Jody.
Hey, he's still ahead of my mom.
Are you guys subscribed to our podcast on Apple Podcasts?
I don't know. Can I do it?
Yeah.
I think I get
Yeah,
notes on it all the time.
Yeah, you can get our podcast now through iTunes, Dad. Now that I helped you download that tonight.
I don't see the benefit for me considering I'm usually on them. So me listening to him doesn't make any sense.
Oh no, Cesternito was saying that he's listening back to Survivor Cagayan because everything's going over on Survivor right now. That he's going to go back and listen to his own podcast just to catch up on the strategy. So sometimes, podcasters do, it's good to listen to yourself every now and then. You see what you do good, you see what you do wrong, and you improve, right? And you figure out exactly how to, get the show to the point where you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. For sure. It's a trial and error process. Okay. I think that the other thing about this episode is that I think that there's some strong acting. I think that Frank Gorshin is actually really good in this episode. And the guy who plays Lokai, I don't know him from anything. I don't know if anybody else does, but
Didn't look familiar, no.
he's not, so there are some moments with Frank Gorshin where he is at his most, Frank.
Well, and the funny thing is, just before we started filming, Ted was talking about how he was the Riddler, and I'm like, the entire episode I'm watching this, I'm like, I know this guy. Why do I know this guy? And I never put two and two together, and then Ted tells me, like, right before the podcast starts.
This was one of my favorite when like right after Lokai says this. Lokai says,
I tried to break the chains of 100 million people. My only crime is that I failed. To that I do plead guilty.
right? He's like, I just tried to help people, and then Beale says,
You
vicious
subverter of every decent thought, boy. You're coming back to pay for your
crimes. It's just-
Did you hear he said coming?
he's
That
like,
was
you're
great.
coming back to pay for your crimes.
You're coming back with me. Like, ooh, that's a little sexual.
You must have did some terrible crimes.
Right. Jason Dolan says, I don't think I've watched more than 5 episodes of the original series, so this is quite entertaining. Well, that's why we're doing it, Jason. It's to
I hope we
you
don't watch
in
them all. That's all
to-
I can tell you, Jason.
Yeah.
Is I really hope we don't watch them all because there is some doozies.
right now we're cherry picking the best ones.
This was one of the best ones.
I think it is actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just,
Well, we're
I
gonna
think,
watch the next. I'll give you the next episode at the end of the show.
Oh, okay.
I think the real
We're gonna
question
do
is
another
what is
Star
the
Trek.
worst? What is the worst original series?
Okay, so I think we should go through a few fun facts about this episode.
All right,
Sounds good.
yeah, let's hit that up.
Okay, so real quick here. Okay, for the first one, okay, the original story that was written for the script for this episode did not depict the aliens as bi-colored skin. One was a devil with a tail, and the other was an angel.
Oh, okay. So that's
Okay,
where they
so-
got the dark and the white. Yeah.
Yeah, so they changed that, and then they made it more like a black-white type idea instead of good bad. Then the other thing that was interesting is so the characters of Bele and Loki are depicted as wearing gloves all the time. This was not because it was a requirement of the script or character descriptions, but because the black and white makeup would have smudged and rubbed off every time their hands touched anything.
But there's a scene where Loki's lying on the bio bed, and you can see the separation between his glove and his sleeve, and you clearly see that he's just a Caucasian guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the makeup there.
Every
There's
time
that continuity chart.
Every
Charm
time-
of the original series.
every time there is a red alert, the camera quickly and repeatedly zoomed in and
What was
out.
that?
of
What was that
shot.
about? Is
Oh,
that
not
only
only
in this
that-
episode?
Did you notice that one of those lights, all of them look the same except for one. One of them looks like the grate that you would have for your heating duct.
Okay, I made a note about that with the fact with the red alert would go wow 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 on red alert.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out if that was specific to
Okay,
this episode.
Can I finish my fun fact?
Sure,
But we're talking about your fun facts.
No, but I didn't get to finish.
Oh,
Let me finish. Yeah,
Okay, you can finish.
The camera quickly and repeatedly zooms in and out of one shot of the many flashing red warning lights, which indicate the red alert. This camera effect, no doubt was used to generate increased intensity, was only used in this episode. So it was
Okay.
used to increase intensity. That's the answer, guys.
Did it? I don't know if it had that desired effect. I think if anything, this episode suffers from not having enough story. There is a lot of filler. In particular, the self-destruct sequence goes on.
Literally took forever.
It takes forever. Now it's and by the way, we just watched Search for Spock last Saturday, and that was we did that podcast. And the self-destruct sequence in this episode is exactly as it's presented in
Yes.
Search for Spock,
I did
except
notice that.
Spock is swapped out for Chekhov in that movie. But Spock's dead at that point, or he's not put.
We
back
don't need to
together.
relive that movie.
Yeah. But I guess the whole idea of the idea of a ship having a self-destruct, I guess, was sort of a new idea. And maybe that's why that whole sequence drags out. Is that accurate?
Well,
And
it
we
was
take
very
that-
important. It had to go through a lot of codes.
Right.
Go through a lot of codes. This is a big thing.
Right. I guess blowing yourself up should have a couple checks and balances.
You should have a bunch of checks and balances in. That makes sense.
That's
Right.
fair.
You don't want
Uh,
drunken Kark one day going, "Oh, it's fucking blow up the ship."
But even like that scene of Frank Gorshin running down the hallway with the fire and whatever, like I feel like that's more filler. And there's a ton of filler in this episode. They needed like a B storyline in order to.
Okay,
There it is.
I have a comment about the filler. So, did you guys notice that how much beauty shots they had of the Enterprise in this episode? Actually, I enjoyed that part quite a bit. But this episode features a close-up of the Enterprise model. Zoom shots from below and above the saucer section are used, representing some of the rare beauty shots. During the opening credits in the first scene, for example, the camera glides underneath the saucer to an extreme close-up of the saucer's phaser section and light.
Wait,
so
is this from the original or like the redone one a couple years ago?
yeah, so this is from 1967, and then 1969. Yeah, so it is from the original, but I don't know if I don't know what version I have that I watched, but the shot, them showing the ship flying through space, is better than a lot of the TNG stuff, or even it's pretty good. I thought.
You're probably watching the remaster then,
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
because the remaster they actually touched up a lot of the models, and some of them are actually CG'd.
Oh, okay. Are they? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I
you probably saw that one.
One thing I noticed at the start of the show, when the spaceship is coming, this is the final frontier and all that stuff. The stars in the sky, there was red ones and blue ones as well as white ones. Now I was trying to figure out what that was all about.
Were you watching the Netflix
Anybody got
one?
any idea on that?
The Netflix?
I have
No, I watched it. I taped that one off of sci-fi TV.
Okay.
The version that I have, I believe, is the original, and I did see those in there too.
Yeah, so
So
a
I
couple
think
years
that
ago,
was from the original production.
They redid all the scenes, like all the exterior ship scenes with CGI to kind of make it more in line with like
More appealing, yeah.
Yeah, like feel more connected to like Next Generation, the shows that came later. And so in space, like things that are coming towards you are going to have I think is it blue or red hue, and things that are moving away from you are it's the opposite, right? Like that's something in physics that's called the doppelganger effect. And so you see this like sprinkled into like space where you'll see some things in red and some things in blue, and it's supposed to be indicative of what direction it's coming at you in.
No, but I know what Ted's talking about, because in my copy you actually could see like it almost looked like a little blue planet, and also looked like a little red planet over in the one side. Stuff like that. There was a couple of those kicking around in the original, which I've never seen in the intro before. I think if anything, that's probably a season 3 thing, because it wasn't in the season 2.
Yeah. That's probably true too.
Yeah.
The
Well, they
other
probably
thing
got
with
more money then, just before they canceled them.
This was season 3. The other thing,
Did you notice though when a red alert happened in that show, that they would show the crew walking up and down the halls, but nobody was seen to be in any hurry. Like red alert, yeah, okay, no big deal, and just walking along like normal.
Yeah, they've been through a few red alerts at this point, so they're a little more cavalier.
Yeah, you think it'd be a little more serious than that?
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, woo.
That was pretty serious. It was red, Ted. And it was shaking. It was going like this.
Right. And this does feel like I am starting to like, I always felt like all the original series was kind of all the same. It all kind of felt the same, but there is a distinct feeling to season 3. Season 3 which was the last season. It has titles in blue instead of yellow, like in the first 2 seasons. Shatner is at his puffiest because he was in the heat of his divorce from his first wife. And it's the Doppler. Yes. Thank you for.
I was hoping somebody would catch on to that. I didn't want to interrupt you.
It's the Doppler effect, not doppelganger. Hey, I was on the right track, Jason. Come on. Give me some credit here. At least I got something right. Ish. But
you got it half right.
I got it half right. I got the first part right. But the whole, like Shatner was sort of, and I think they kind of knew maybe the show wasn't good to be renewed. Did we lose Jody? Uh-oh.
It's okay. Just continue the podcast, Dave. You don't need to stop because we lost Jody.
I know. It was just all sudden.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. Like, I don't understand why this show was canceled, though, Dave. Like, I mean, this is probably like one of the last episodes that was ever produced.
Well, it's in the final 7 episodes that they ever made.
Yeah.
Of the original series.
Right. So I never understood. It seemed to do well even at the time. So I mean, I have to do some research onto that, but like it seemed like the show was successful. I mean, how many seasons though did Batman go, Dad?
About 3 or 2? No, 2. I think it was
only 2 for Batman.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe that was just the thing back then. They only did, a couple seasons.
Yes and no. I think there were some shows that were able to go a little longer. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know Dad. How many years were Beverly Hillbillies on? And how many years were like all these shows on that would have been?
I'm not sure. Probably 4 or 5 years at least for Beverly Hillbillies, I would think.
Right. So a show didn't typically last more than that in those days. There would have been exceptions, I'm sure. But.
Do you like the blue titles over the yellow titles?
No, I like the yellow titles actually more.
Interesting. Yeah. So also with Frank Gorshin.
You mean at the beginning?
Yeah,
at the beginning. So with Frank Gorshin, apparently he first came to public attention as a stand-up comedian and a celebrity impressionist, and he did a James Cagney impression. So there's a blooper reel as him as Bele beaming down to Charon, and he would act like James Cagney on the planet.
Oh, really? I got to see that.
Yeah. So I gotta find that at some point. So that's got to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I'm back on the right.
Actually, I was correct. Archived stock footage of World War II era London, England burning was shown, superimposed on the fleeing scenes of Loki and Bele. So
that footage is real?
That is real footage of London burning in World War II.
Interesting.
I didn't think it was London. I thought it was Berlin. But it's London. Yeah, I knew it was
3 seasons. Was it though, Jason? Was it? I think he's actually right about that. Actually, did you know that there was actually a different Riddler in season 2?
No, I did not.
The guy who played
Yeah,
the guy who played Gomez on the Addams Family. I don't know the actor's name, but the Addams Family TV show of that era. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Do.
yes. Oh, yeah.
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 He played the Riddler in season 2. Not
And
Frank
you know
Gorshin.
who was the Addams Family? Who was the big guy, or the tall guy? What was his name?
Lurch.
Yeah.
Lurch. And you
Yeah.
know who he was? He was the judge in My Cousin Vinny.
That's right.
To what? To Utes.
No, Lurch. Lurch the guy who was the judge in My Cousin Vinny was Herman Munster from the Munsters.
Oh, that's it. Herman Munster. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
The Munsters. I was getting them mixed up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jody's back.
That was the golden era of television, when all those good shows were all on.
Yes. The
Yes,
golden era.
well, it's at the present. Oh, he's loading.
Oh,
He's
Jody.
loading.
Jody.
Yeah.
Hogan's Heroes. Have you ever seen that one, Dave?
Not much. I know what it is, but didn't watch much of
There we
Hogan's
Yeah,
here.
it's a bunch of guys.
Sorry about
They-
that.
A bunch of very brave soldiers. I
Yeah.
understand.
Nothing says a barrel of laughs
Yes.
like Nazis.
Nazis. We don't even
what,
want to
Hogan's
leave. We
Heroes?
don't even want to leave this POW camp because it's such a great time.
Hogan's Heroes is a very underestimated show. It's very good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, there
Tape
have
it
been a
every
lot of
day.
Nazi-esque comedies that have come out since. I mean, you got the Jojo Rabbit movie that came out. You could say Inglourious Basterds has a lot of comedy in it. I mean, that has been happening. Hogan's Hero paved the way for that kind of genre of.
And of course, Dr. Evil was
Right.
he was kind of, and then the other one that uses the Nazis a lot is Star Wars.
Right.
With their
Symbolism, anyway. Yeah.
symbolism. Yes, absolutely.
symbolism. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, guys. I had an internet issue, so now I'm streaming on my phone. We'll see how this
really?
goes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
big issues.
Your camera
Well,
actually
you
looks
lost
better
your
on
upper
your
right
phone.
Your
position.
camera's better on your phone, actually. But-
No, I'm actually still on the same camera. I'm
Oh.
just using my internet connection from my phone.
Oh, you're from your phone.
Ah.
Oh, interesting.
Hotspot.
hotspot.
Yeah. Like when I was but like just to talk about this episode a bit more, like when I was watching it, like Beale and Lokai, Frank Gorshin and whoever the other guy is, like it's just like it comes across like a stage play. Like these guys were just yucking it up, like just were like, I will have these big like monologues, and I would do it. I was really enjoying it in some ways. I was just kind of like I can enjoy two actors just tearing up a scene. And so I think that's really sort of what makes this whole episode work largely. I think it's more Gorshin than the other guy, actually, because I know him, but also just 'cause-
What I couldn't understand, what I couldn't understand in that is Lokai kept telling Kirk on the bridge to kill Frankie Gorshin. Kill him!
yes.
Right? It was impossible for them to kill him. Their phasers didn't even work. They have repellent. They have
like their own
screens.
shields and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think
Their own shields. Like
I think that brings it to my next point, which is why do Lokai or Beale need any help from Kirk, the Enterprise, or why do they even talk to them so much? Because they're clearly these two super powerful aliens, particularly Beale, who was able to, with his mind, change the direction of the Enterprise, which is apparently an ability Lokai does not have. But that they're super powerful, advanced, that they can't be killed, they can't even be attacked. So why all the talk? It's just so that somebody will help them solve their argument. They just want somebody to take their side and tell them they're right.
Well, I don't. What was it? Beale was the other guy. Beale was the guy that was running, right?
Lokai.
Beale was the chaser.
Lokai.
Lokai. Oh, sorry. Lokai was
running.
Lokai was the guy that stole the shuttle. So the impression that I got was that Lokai was just looking for another civilization to live in. That's kind of where I came from, but I don't know. This episode compared to last week's episode, I enjoyed last week's episode much more than this.
Yeah.
But it was more entertaining. This was a lot of, as I think Jeff was the one that pointed out, a lot of filler. Lots of
Well, I think that this also could have been like a half-hour episode. There just
easily.
wasn't enough to make it like a full 42 minutes or whatever.
Like they could have expanded out on the fact of, where was it, Ares or something they were going to? Eris or something? What was the planet they were going to originally?
Arianis or something.
Arianis or something, yeah. So they could have at least showed a little bit more of that. Maybe less of the 20-minute talking matches that they were having. It's just I understand why they're showing the self-destruct thing. I think the whole point of that was to show the tension and stuff like that, and also to basically it was just Kirk whipping out his, and then he whipping out his, and he's like, okay, well, guess what? I'm gonna win. That's
right.
just
and
Kirk,
so
right?
and we talked about the absurdity of that, where he's like, okay, it's all settled now. You two run the ship, go wherever you want, talk whatever.
Very silly.
And so Lokai goes down and talks to Sulu and all them, and he's kind of making his case to maybe more of the lower deck guys, the lower junior officer guys. And then you got Beale over drinking what looks to be multiple alcoholic drinks with Kirk and Spock. Like, I don't know if you looked at that table, but it's filled with booze. And they've been there for a while drinking it, and there's glasses for all of them. Now,
Romulan ale.
Romulan ale. But and then this is where like the famous scene occurs, where between Kirk, Spock, and Beale, right, where like the whole thing comes into in the thing, right? Because
Are you blind, Commander Spock? Oh, look at me.
I'm black on the
I am black on the right side.
And
it is obvious to the most simple-minded that Lokai is of an inferior breed.
Exactly. And all his
because
people.
the color was on the other side of the face.
Lokai is white on the right side. All of his people are white on the right side.
Yeah, and then so Kirk and Spock just look at him with like this bewildered, confused, dumbfounded expression. They're just like, "What are you talking about?" We get a bit more. I don't know if we had heard before that the Vulcans had nearly destroyed themselves before Logic. I don't know if this is the first episode to postulate that or not, but I thought it was interesting that got put into there, and that was kind of reiterated. The Vulcans are not. They're not beyond like petty differences like any other species, but they had learned to evolve past them. And one of my favorite quotes from Spock in this episode is, "Change is the essential process of all existence."
Change is the essential process of all existence.
Right, and that life has to change, things have to change, ideas have to change for us as people, as society, whatever. We have to move on. And that was what really stuck with me, that you can't be, if you have your ideology too cemented, like these two clearly did, that it's going to be your undoing. And I think that's what the whole like sort of real life metaphor is. Like, so we're seeing like we're in this pandemic right now, we're trying to get through it. And luckily in Canada, we haven't had to experience sort of like the fighting over it like we're seeing in the United States, where right now, and they've been going through this for years, but they've been so partisan between left and right, blue and red, whatever, for so long that it made me really think of them, especially now, as they're talking about real life and death issues in the States with this whole pandemic. And it's coming down to the election, which is coming up, and a president who is trying to be president and a candidate at the same time and can't reconcile those things, and how it's torn even families apart largely, like where people have to pick different sides of an ideology.
The people can't have Thanksgiving dinners down there anymore.
Right. Or if they do, they can't talk about politics, right? Like that's a forbidden subject now.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to think about, because I think one thing that Star Trek taught me was that we shouldn't be afraid of words, and we shouldn't be afraid of any ideas. That we have to be able to have a free flowing conversation. We have to be able to debate things, be able to change our opinions of things, or it's all kind of futile. Why are we like the conversation doesn't have any merit because it's all about trying to win. Right. And that works in a debate setting, in an adversarial, like in a courtroom setting, but that doesn't work in like real life. It's not sports.
Well, we
It's,
also have to remember that this episode aired in January of 1969.
Mhm.
Like we're talking like right in the middle of a whole bunch of crap going on.
Yeah.
You know, you have civil rights movement still really going hard then. You know, stuff like that. So it's like, you know, obviously this really hit home for a lot of people, I'm sure. The best part of the entire episode was when really was the Spock and the Kirk thing going, you know, kind of looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? You both look the same. You know, you're just, you know, you're just flipped or whatever. You know, that kind of is the best. I think that's really the best message out of the entire episode is like, you know, you may look different, but you're the same. Like you really are. Like
Fail
it's
to see the
I mean-
significant difference.
exactly, yeah.
Just
The thing that also, the thing that also blows my mind is that if you think about this, this is 6 months before the Americans landed on the moon. Like
Right.
that's to put
That's
that in
true.
context. It's kind of
Also-
interesting, yeah.
That's what I was going to say, Jody, is that the year before, Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated. You know,
Yes.
months,
Yeah.
but probably around the same time they're filming this episode. So
Probably, yeah.
we're putting this into context of what was really going on in the world. They were probably thinking a lot about those kind of concepts.
And that might also be the reason why we've moved from the angel and the devil type persona to a black and a white type situation, right? Just to kind of hit home with the viewers, right?
Right. And when I was a kid, like in the 90s, I always thought we had grown so much beyond this and that this was sort of a dated metaphor and something that didn't necessarily apply to today. But that's not true. Clearly I never was of the illusion that like we had defeated racism or that prejudice had been eradicated or anything like that. Hey, shades. But now it feels like we've almost come back to where we were then, you know, like the polarization of people.
I don't think we're into the same thing, but you know, obviously I can't, as a, you know, fat white guy, I definitely can't, you know, relate to all the struggles that are happening in the world when it comes to racism. But the main thing here is, yeah, I agree with you. Like it definitely opens your eyes a little bit, makes you rethink. I remember thinking during this episode while watching it last night, thinking to myself, have we really changed that much from the late 60s, you know? And yeah, I think there's things that are a lot more acceptable nowadays. But you know, I think it's you know, we still have work to move when it comes to racism, I think.
There is an order in things. He asks for utopia in a day. It can't be done.
It can't be done.
But that's like the excuse, right? Of people who don't want to see change happen is that we can't do this that fast. We can't change our problems. It can't be done in a day. Which is true. Of course, you can't do it in a day, but that.
But you know what? If you told me a year ago that the world would be having a pandemic and that people would actually be joining a cause, and people would be, you know, all kind of relating to that exact same problem, like this, you know, even if you look at this pandemic as being, you know, a big issue, which clearly it is, obviously for a lot of people have died. But it's causing a lot of stir in a lot of big countries. Like U.S. is a perfect example of that. They're going through a real big problem right now, which is very relatable to, you know, racism and stuff like that, right? Even though it's not clearly just racism, but there's a lot of things going on. You know, we're talking, you know, virus. You know, there's people oppressing Chinese people because a virus originated in their country. Like,
Right.
Give me a break.
They
Like,
almost, the U.S. almost has as many unemployed as there are Canadians.
yeah, that's scary. I feel really bad for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the president's telling them to drink Clorox as if that's, you know, pretty much.
Yeah.
It sounds like a population control, if anything.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, the thing is, like, we act like we're so much better than people were in the 60s, but I mean, come on, I mean, in some ways we're worse. We're more complacent. We're more willing to lay down and not do anything and just go into our houses and do Netflix and chill and just escape from the world.
Well, and that's that adage you see on Facebook, right? You know, people are like, you know, if you're talking in the 40s, you know, you were asked to go out and fight a war. Like you were asked to travel to a far land and shoot people. You know, all we're asking you right now to do is sit on your fucking ass and stay home. Like,
and the other thing too is that you could get shot too.
Well,
Yeah.
at the time that this episode aired, it had only been 23 years since the end of World War II.
Right.
And we have Vietnam on its way in.
23 years ago, it was
Actually, it was already going. Yeah.
it was 1997. 1997.
Right. So 1997 doesn't feel
ago.
that long ago for us, but that was the time difference between World War II and this.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to kind of like put into context a little bit about. I find people forget that about the 60s, that the 60s was a different time of revolution and ideas. Like they were really ideas were they were unable to control them. The 50s was a little bit different. It was a little bit more cookie cutter. It wasn't until the 60s where everybody started doing the whole free love thing. Not that I'm saying it was good, but it was in some ways it was good.
So,
It led to the idea like the idea like a show like Star Trek would have been on in the 50s is probably not likely.
Right.
Because of the idea of the audience wanting to consume a show like this was not really palatable in the 50s. They wanted I Love Lucy, and they wanted those kind of shows.
So just as you just said with that 97 thing, I actually just quickly had a quick check as to see what were the major events of 97, just so we can kind of relate to this a little bit.
Okay.
So Hong Kong's independence from England, that happened in 97.
Yep.
Okay. O.J. Simpson loses his civil case for wrongful death.
Okay.
Right. China resumes control of Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Right.
you said that one.
Well, two different. Yeah, I guess technically the same thing. Princess Diana's funeral. Like, these are all things that happen. And that wasn't that long ago to us.
Princess
But that's
Diana
just
died.
as long as the difference would be. Sorry?
Yeah, I was with Jason Doan, who's our next comment here.
There you go.
I was with him when and his mother when Princess Diana died in that car crash. So okay, yeah, just a context there. But like comment here from Jason Doan, prejudice and racism has always existed. Because we are seeing more cases in the mainstream media does not mean it is happening any more now than it was then. I think what we're trying to say is that Jason, I think that you would think that it would be happening a lot less than we are seeing it, but in fact, it seems to have gone the other way. We haven't moved that needle as much as we necessarily would have hoped and would have believed at certain times. Yeah, and we will. It's a slow thing.
I hope so.
Yeah, but will there always be prejudice and discrimination? Maybe. I hope not, but I think that's the whole goal is we're trying to move past that.
Yeah.
It's
one day. I hope to see in my lifetime anyway.
But when wow, we got a long way to go. Clearly,
this is a heavy episode. It's bringing up a lot of heavy.
Now I know what Ted was up to when he picked this episode. Makes sense now.
Yep, there you go.
It's all coming together.
Well, yeah, I think it is poignant, not just with racism, but also how you're going to reconcile your differences with somebody you're diametrically opposed to. I don't have it as an audio clip, but Spock says one of the last things Spock says in this episode is that it's not logical to expect that people with such diametrically opposed views to sort of like be able to come together in any kind of sense, right?
He also says that hatred is what consumed them, right? And I think if we just compare it to what's going on right now in America, for instance, people are they seem to forget that we're all humans, that we're all if you're in America, you're all Americans, you all want the same thing. You all want what JFK said. We all want to see our children grow old. We all want to we all want life and the ability to be free and the ability to all those things, and right now people are getting confused or they're getting misguided by not only the president but also the media. Everything that's going on right now is the hatred is consuming people, and it's really bad. And it's like we can't see Dad said earlier, the forest for the trees.
It's like I was in a lineup the other day because I was buying some groceries and doing the 6 foot whatever rule and all that. But the lady behind me was talking about how the Chinese are trying to kill us with this virus. It's like, are you kidding me? Like it's those stupid little things that I hear that just drives me absolutely mental.
Yeah.
And that's another proven point right there, right? Like obviously that's racism. It's silly, but did she get that from the media? Probably.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then close, speaking close to home too. Right now is what's going on in Nova Scotia with just a mass shooting, a senseless murder of over 22 people.
Yeah.
And just everything that's going on in the media, everything. It feels like the world's imploding right now, and it's just like, how do we not let hatred or dilute our ability to think?
Well, I think the thing too is that hatred and prejudice is very much like a disease, right? Like it's like a virus. It gets spread. It's a learned behavior that those ideas get transferred from parent to child. They get from friend to friend, whatever, and that's how they go out. And the only to beat those kinds of things, we have to be able to freely exchange information and ideas and also be humble enough to admit we're wrong. That's the harder part, is being able to sort of
that's something you'll never see from the president of the United States.
No.
He never will say he's wrong about anything.
Right. Like, right? I think if we think about the movie Dogma, there's a great line in there from Chris Rock's character of Rufus who says, I think when you have beliefs, that can be problematic because it's pretty hard to change a belief. Yeah. It's better to have ideas because you can change an idea. You can't change a belief. And when that's even embedded in, then that's when conflict arises and people die and suffering occurs. So let's not do that.
This is getting deep.
I know. Well, I said, what episode are we doing, Dad? He goes, let that be your last battlefield. And I go, oh, we're going deep on this one. Here we go.
Yeah, this is a very deep episode. And you can't not talk about this episode and not get into a lot of big concepts. And
that's true.
I'd rather talk about, one of the other, Amok Time and talk about Spock not being able to have sex,
That's deep.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep.
Well, you're going to have to wait for the next episode to get to that.
Yeah, this is he picks the episode. We got to watch it. That's how it goes. So
yeah. So I'll tell you what next episode's going to be. You want to know what the next episode's going to be?
Do you know? Yeah, I want to know.
Yes, I know. I already know.
Me too.
It's going to be called The Patterns of Force.
I'm not familiar with that. No, I don't.
Oh, I'm looking it up right now. Patterns of Force. That is one of my favorite episodes. I didn't know the name of it.
A Nazi episode.
That's a Nazi episode.
Oh, that is a good episode. Yeah.
That is a great episode.
Yes, good. It's going to be the next episode.
That's one of my favorites.
When they go back to
funny enough, I didn't know the name.
You like the ones where they go back to the 20th century Earth?
Yes. I don't personally, but I do like that episode.
But that's on an alien planet. Oh, right. That's like one of Kirk's old teachers has gone Nazi or something. Yeah. Okay. I know that one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very similar to the first one.
No, that was gangsters.
That was gangsters. Now you like when these guys deal with more real life.
Well, let's be clear here, Ted. Though the Nazis were gangsters.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
They were just a different version of them.
Way more organized and successful.
Just
a lot more firepower.
Just like Trump is a mob boss.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not to get political.
We're gonna get banned off of YouTube now because of that comment, but
I'm okay with it.
That podcast. Can't have it.
Really nasty. Just nasty comments.
Nasty comments.
Yes, that's really nasty.
Okay. Well, hey, anything else to say about this episode?
I enjoyed it more than watching a couple of the other things that are coming up.
Yep. Okay. Well, hey, that's something.
I watched 3 different things for podcasts last night. So.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Jeff, Dad, any final thoughts?
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I think we covered it.
I didn't get this as an audio clip, but Jane has just pointed out that I don't know if you heard in this episode where there's a captain's log towards near the end.
Yes,
and
I know what she's talking about.
We've been like sabotaged.
Yeah.
Sabotage is
Yeah.
how William Shatner pronounces it. And apparently, William Shatner cannot properly pronounce the word sabotage, hence the use of the song Sabotage in all of the Chris Pine Star Trek movies, which is a direct, I guess, tie-in with that. So thank you for
That I didn't
reminding me.
know. But what's
about
really
that.
interesting is I started watching Undiscovered Country. I've gotten through the movies in the order, right? Because we're doing those on as another coverage. And Kim Cattrall says that. I believe they used to throw their boots into the machines. They called it sabotage.
Yeah, she says it better than Shatner ever did. Yes, yeah. If you go back, it is. I didn't pick up on it the first time, but then
No,
when
I heard
James
it. I heard it the first time. I'm like, he said that
Yeah.
wrong.
It must have something to do with being from Montreal.
Maybe.
It
That's
must be.
Jason Doan, that's for you.
All right, everybody. I'm going to start the sign off here. Make sure to subscribe to our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. We have an audio feed through Anchor. You can subscribe to us there, however you listen to podcasts. And make sure to check out our content on our other channel. We got Super Mater Brothers Podcasting. We cover TV and movies, not Star Trek related over there. We got Westworld Season 3 that's coming to an end pretty soon. Survivor Season 40, which is all winners. Also, here on Live Long and Podcast, tomorrow, Saturday afternoon, we're going to be covering Star Trek 4, A Voyage Home with... There you go. Where's that coming from?
What's that?
Oh, wow.
Someone forgot to take his phone away before the podcast.
Jeff and I's mother, my dad's wife, Beth Mater, will be joining us on the Live Long and Podcast for Star Trek 4. Make sure to tune in.
I'm super excited for that. I'm a big
she'll
Beth
be sitting.
Mater fan.
She'll be sitting with Jeff for that podcast.
I'm a massive Beth Mater
We
fan.
watched The Voyage Home right before this podcast. So
Oh, so you've already watched?
I watched it last night. Yeah, I watched Voyage Home last night.
I'm excited to cover that one. That's one of the best ones.
I will tell you, some of my opinions have changed.
Yes. And we've kind of teased it, but we are bringing back Trivial Debates. Trivial Debates is an older podcast of ours with our group of friends. We haven't done one in about 4 years, so we're bringing it back.
It has been that long. It's been like 2.
I looked it up today.
That has been 4 years.
It's been 4 years, man.
No
It's
way.
been 4 years.
All right. Wow.
2016 was the last time we did one. So,
No way. Wow.
and it was mostly, I'll get into it on that one, but on Sunday, look out for Trivial Debates. We're going to have a great panel for that. It's going to be pandemic themed. Have a great day and night, everybody. I want to thank my panel here. Dad, Jody, Jeff, everybody who's been here, everybody's watching. I want to thank Jason Doan, who's been watching along and commenting.
Candace.
And I want to thank Candace for the final comment, which is it was the most driving point episode. What is going on?
All right, turn off the damn music.
What is
God?
God? That is.
Turn it off.
Oh my God! I have to mute you. Okay.
Kick out the boy.
Oh wow. Okay. Have a great.
Candace had to sit beside me, by the way, and watch this episode.
Stay home. Stay safe. Live long and podcast and long life. Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Right.